Hello, my podcast people, and thank you for joining me for yet another episode of my favorite podcast. If you were watching, if you were listening, if you're tuning in on the day that it drops, it is Monday, November 18th. The month is flying, especially because I'm literally recording this like 30 seconds after the last one that I recorded, which was last Monday's episode. That's episode 631, Who's Your Biggest Fan? I really had a fun time recording that, so if you haven't listened to it, go back and listen to it. But all that to say, no life updates. We're going to jump right on into the episode today. So I want to talk about something that I got asked on a podcast I was recently on. When that is going to release, I don't know, maybe like in December. I was a repeat guest on Claire Pelletro's podcast. So hold on, let me look at this thing. Just changing that. Okay. If you're watching YouTube, I just touched the screen because the little red square was not on my face. And I was like, is it focused? I don't know. But hopefully it's focused now. It looked focused, but then it was definitely not my face. So I have been asked this question before a bunch, and I typically turn it around and I speak about how not to run out of ideas for content. But today I'm just going to straight up talk about the question I get asked, which is, what do I do when I run out of ideas for content? And I'm like, that's very making an assumption there that I actually run out. But here's what I do. So first off, I am always going to do my best to absolutely just keep putting out more content. That is at the default for me. Like, momentum for me beats motivation every single time. And we all know once you stop, it's like really hard as fuck to get started going again. So I'd rather just not stop. Full transparency with this, though, as of today, I haven't been posting as much as I usually do, mainly because of life. And by life, I mean the election and it's like all of my thoughts in my head and me working through them and, dealing with all of them so that I can then have a better headspace and be able to create content. But, all the podcast episodes come out. It's just what has fallen to the wayside is making reels and posts. But I still have done some. But not as much as I normally do. So by the time this comes out, though, it's going to be the 18th, and I will be back on full posting. So maybe ignore that a little bit, but also just wanted the transparency there. But like I was saying, I try my best to just keep going, which is why I will go back to what I was saying. I'm still putting stuff out. Like, it's just not as much as I normally do, but I will still do my best because momentum beats motivation. So I spoke about this regarding the podcast, this idea of running out of ideas for content and needing to take a break. I spoke about this with a client recently, and he asked straight up how often I need to just take a break from content, namely the podcast. And I said, never. But I followed it up with, I also don't have kids. And he went on to say that his wife had actually just gone away for a few days, and he was, solo parenting, and he was taking a lot of time to do something and lean into something that he hadn't leaned into for the past 18 months, which was simply being present and not just being nose to the grindstone. And I was like, yeah, that's a great fucking reason to stop. Like, absolutely. So that little part right there, that's my way of throwing in there that I am fully aware that I have more time to make content. Objectively, I have more time than many people. And that is intentional. I have created and curated my life as such. I don't want kids. I never have wanted kids. I want time for me. And I want time to do things that I want to do. And I feel no kind of way about saying that. I feel no kind of way about that. AKA, I don't feel bad. AKA, I feel very good about it. But to get into the tactical side of things of what I do when I'm like not super inspired. Number one, I think I got 6 points here. Number one, I pull from running list. I stay talking about this. So if you've ever heard me speak about content creation, you already know this. I use the notes app in my iPhone, and I organize all those notes into different folders. And I have a folder for every different part of my business and the different types of content that I have to make. Anytime I have an idea, I drop it in there, and then I have a running list, and I can pull from that running list when I'm not feeling super inspired. All right, and obviously I check things off when I actually post that content or create that type of content. Y'all know that I am not a planner when it comes to content, and a content calendar would absolutely not be helpful for me. Like, the thought of one, I'm just like, I would throw it in the trash. Like, I don't even want to fucking make one. Never mind, stick to one. But if that would help you, by all means, lean all the fuck the way in, right? All the way in. Number two thing that I do, poll people. Right? If I'm running out, I don't have any ideas for content, poll people. I will suggest, or I will say, do not rely on this though, because people don't always have something to say. They don't know sometimes what they want to see until they see it. it can take time for people to get back to you. So if you like put up a story in your Instagram, it can take time for them to message back and then or answer it. And then you're like, I'm sitting here waiting. So if you're going to do that early on. And sometimes you may just not like what people have as suggestions. You're like, I don't want to make content about that. So don't rely on it. But definitely if people do write back, number one, thank them. And then number two, add all of those suggestions to your notes, because there may come a time where you're like, actually, like I am feeling like making that piece of content. Right? Third suggestion, bring back an old piece of content, right? Or bring back an old topic. So this is definitely easier if you have way more content to pull from and you've been doing this for a bit. You could do it verbatim. Like my Thursday throwbacks is literally, I just pulled an episode. I will, change the intro, but it's the same exact episode. You can repurpose an idea, or you can, you get to choose. You can, how you want to do it. Even this episode right now, like this is something that came up, but I was also like, I've done an episode about this before, but I'm repurposing this. And the idea for this came from the conversations I've had, but like, yes, I already have this content out there. I do want to use this to mention and speak about where you are in your content creation journey and how that plays a role. So if you're just in the beginning, then I'm going to say force it. Don't bring back old content rather. Just like force yourself to make something new. Like I know I stay saying nothing good ever came from anything forced, but let's maybe use a different word and say push through it, right? If you're in the beginning, part of the reason that you don't have anything, that you feel like you don't have anything to talk about, is that you're trying to get over yourself and you're just trying to build a habit. You haven't built that habit yet, right? You haven't gotten over your shit yet. Quantity can absolutely beget quality, and it will help you get over your shit, get past yourself. And because you usually in the beginning, you're kind of like, oh, it's not gonna be that good. Someone else has said it. And you don't realize the value of saying something that someone else has already said, the value of saying something that you've already said, the value of somebody saying the things that you want to say. You have to get past that, right? So I will say push. If you're in the beginning, push through as opposed to repeating content. If you're seasoned, then yeah, listen to this. Like, hey, I'm feeling not super inspired. Listen to this and don't be afraid to pull the old stuff, or just take a straight up break, which is not point number 4. Take a straight up break. This is not something that I lean into often, but I want to offer it up as a suggestion. I don't say that to like be like, I'm better than you. I said in the very beginning, it's just the momentum is just way easier for me. So this is something that I want to offer up as a suggestion, because literally no one's going to die if you stop the podcast for a week or you stop the newsletter for a week. Like the world is going to continue on. But I try to always keep something going. When I say something, I mean like I have so many different types of content that I'm creating, and I'm pretty sure, and also just keep it going in some way, shape, or form. So I'm pretty sure that in the beginning when I did my podcast was I took it down to 1 episode a week during the summer instead of taking like a summer break, I believe. This was like, I've been doing this shit for many, many years now, since 2014. But, even now, like I have the Thursday episodes that I'm doing as reruns instead of me just not doing anything there. But regarding those straight up breaks, if you need these constantly, like I constantly need to take a break, I would be asking myself if the frequency is simply too much, the volume is too much. Like ask yourself what's more sustainable and what allows for more consistency and that works for you, and then lean into that. But again, breaks are not bad by any means. If you do have to keep taking them, I would question if the volume is too much, and that's fine if it is. Let's just look to change it. I'm not against like working hard and grinding. Like I almost said there, like, oh, this isn't about grind culture, but like you want outcomes, you gotta fucking work. Like there's no like way around it. I'm not trying to be all like soft with the messaging here. Putting in the time and the effort and the volume and the reps, it is helpful. And Annie and I just talked about this on the interview I did with her. Like there's something incredibly valuable about this, like putting your nose down, putting your head down, and like getting those things out there and creating that content. But it has to be on at a cadence that's sustainable for you. All right, like yeah, it'd be great if you could just like fucking go sprint, but like if you can't sustain that, and you have to keep walking and stopping, like maybe just go slower so you can just keep going, right? So all that to say with that, like there is value, and the person that posts daily will likely get to their goals faster than the person who is posting once every never, if the daily posting is sustainable for that person. All right? Okay, on to the next one. Number 5, if I run out of ideas for content, reconfigure the way that you create content, or reconfigure how you reconfigure how you create content. This is especially for my seasoned folks. The translation here is maybe it's time for change. All right, I'm kind of feeling this way about the podcast. I'm feeling like I said everything I want to say. I'm like, I've already said that. These 600 something plus episodes. I wouldn't stop the podcast because I love this medium. I love talking. But I would likely just start a different one with a different focus, more that's like just directly about building and living your best life. I already know that like Instagram and social media and online business would come up in it though. So I don't know. I'm sitting with it. We'll see what the new year brings. But all that to say, it's okay to put that out into the ether that maybe the thing that you've been doing for a really long time has run its course. And that's why you're like, I don't really have ideas that I'm excited about. Right? Again, it's for my seasoned people, right? Maybe you're feeling constrained by the niche and it's time to switch the niche. I say this cautiously, and again, I'm largely saying this to my seasoned folks, though life is too short to be doing shit that you hate. So if you're not seasoned and you're hating what you're doing, please change it. Just understand that it means that you're starting from the beginning. If you're seasoned, you're not necessarily starting from scratch or from the beginning, especially if the niche is tangential to your current niche. Like my move from online business, my move into online business from all my, teaching of movement and stuff like that. Because now I teach movement professionals, so it's, same demographic there. But, even if the move you make isn't tangential, you'll still have some people, especially they trust you, but probably less. So just something to consider, that maybe the thing has run its course. And this is me just literally putting it into the ether, because sometimes that just needs to happen. It needs to be said, it needs to be put out there that like this thing has run its course. I don't know. And lastly, accept that sometimes content creation will be slow, having ideas will be slow or difficult, and you just push through. So this is tying into point number 3, but I wanted to make it its own point because there's value in it, right? So this year, my word of the year is write, W-R-I-T-E. So even when I'm not super inspired, I push myself to figure something out, especially, for my newsletter. I will also say though that it is easier for me to figure out something to write than it is for the podcast. I think it's somewhat easier, maybe because for my newsletter, it's more about life than it is like specifically about online business, whereas the podcast is like specifically about online business or more specifically about online business. And I'm like, I've already said it. So this is also what has me thinking like maybe it's time to evolve the podcast, but we'll see. But also I'd love to hear your feedback on that. But in terms of action items to help you push through and just be like, I'm going to create. For me, movement always helps. So I've spoken about this a ton. I will write while I lift. I'll write outlines of things. I'll write outlines of like presentations I'm giving while I lift. I have a big whiteboard down there. I can do it on my phone, whatever is easiest, depends on my mood. I will talk while I walk. So if I'm out on a walk, I will just use the the talk to text. I don't usually like using the voice note, but I'll use talk to text. Or I'll just write the outline for things while I'm on my walking pad. So I'm actually on it right now. I'm not walking on it, but I'm standing on it right now. And sometimes while I'm, looking to do the outline for the podcast, it comes easier if I am moving. So I will 100% lean into that. The advice I have this is advice I have for anyone, irrespective of where you are at in your content journey, though, like I said in point 3, this is definitely something that I will emphasize for folks that are earlier on in their content creation journey. They're more the newbies and they just haven't built that muscle yet. Like this is just like going to the gym. It can take some time to want to go to the gym and be excited about going to the gym. And even after that, you will have days when you're like, I'm not excited to go. But by then you can lean on discipline because you've built that muscle, that quote unquote for real muscle, if you will, right? Because you build the muscle, you can lean on discipline. It's part of your identity now, and you just go. So there you have it. 6 things that I do when I run out of ideas for content. Number 1, pull from a running list. Number 2, poll people. Number 3, bring back an old topic. Number 4, take a straight up break. Number 5, reconfigure how I create content. Maybe it's time for a change. That's a big one. Rachel Strickland, that one was for you. And number 6, accept that sometimes we'll be slower or more difficult with content creation and just push through. All right, that's all I got for you for today. That's it. Would love to hear from you if the spirit moves you. If not, well, then that's okay too. But that's number 2, which is poll the people. Anything you want to hear, any topics you want, or if you have thoughts about making a new podcast. I do have an idea around that, and I might. I don't know. We'll see. But as always, endlessly appreciative for you listening to my rambles. Until next time, friends, Maestro